Hello everyone, my name's Amanda and welcome to my channel. In today's video we're going to be doing a Sims 4 speed build and we're going to be doing a large modern glass house. I've been really loving playing around with the glass wall update that we received in the latest base game update. I did build the house, the middle house on the other side of the road here. I did build that when the glass wall update first came out, but I wanted to do a larger one that I could fit in to this part of Newcrest that I've been renovating. So when you open Newcrest, as I'm sure you know, it's a blank save. However, the world itself kind of looks like a bit like Willow Creek. It looks as though it's an extension of Willow Creek to me anyway, but I decided I wanted to go in and put a lot of new builds here and for them to all have a modern vibe to them, and I've wanted them to all be a little bit matchy but without being the same. So we're going in today doing a similar style to the houses that are in the background on the other side of the road here. All of these houses I have done speed building videos for, so they are up on my channel. But jumping into today's one, we are building on the Midtown Meadows lot, which is a 40 by 30 size lot, so it's a nice size, and I really wanted this house to be a more medium size family home, but keeping with that modern minimalist kind of look to it. So we're going to go in and use predominantly neutrals, but I do come in with some blacks as well because that's what we've done on the other builds, and like I said, I wanted them to all fit as though they've been built with the same style in mind, but each having their own unique look. And then obviously for this one I wanted there to be lots of glass elements on both the inside and the outside. So one portion of the build, so the middle portion, you can see that that's completely glass, and that's going to be our dining room. The glass portion on the right hand side is our living room, and then upstairs I've done that as kind of like an upstairs conservatory, but just for growing plants in, and I really loved how that turned out. So as you can see, we've got the main bulk of the shell built now. I'm going to come in and make a few tweaks and changes as we go throughout, but we've got that main shell done, and I'm just coming in and I've gone for this kind of like neutral stone wallpaper or paint, and then we've gone in with some black elements here and there as well, and then I've wanted to make sure that I've mixed that up with lots of glass pieces as well. And then there are a few little half walls I come in and add here and there. I think we do add a chimney on at one point on the platform to the right hand side as well. And then I wanted to make sure that there was still a garden section here as well, so I've sectioned off one part of the garden to be our swimming pool. Then we've got this large platform kind of like decking area, and then it goes down into a little grass area, and I end up using that to place down a few things for the children. So we come in and place like a swing and a few things like that further along in the video, but I just wanted to map out majority of the build before I jump on inside. So I've gone for this marble flooring. I decided to come in and make a half wall going around the whole edge of the property just to kind of fence it off a little bit, but we made that glass as well, which I really love that you can now sort of create your own fully glass fences effectively by using half walls and then the glass wall swatch. Moving on inside, I'm just kind of trying to map out where the stairs are going to go so that I can come in and finish off the floor plan so I know exactly where I'm placing down things like windows and doors. It's a very simple floor plan because I've kind of, as I was building the exterior of this, I was building it as though I knew which section was going to be which room, like for example that glass area in the middle being the dining room, so it was very easy to then come in and floor plan. I also knew that I really wanted to use these larger windows. I think they're from, I completely have forgotten the name of the pack, but I'll try and remember. I'm sure it's going to come to me. I think it's the Generation sort of style pack, Growing Together. I think they're from that pack. I could be wrong. There's so many Sims 4 packs now that it's really hard to keep track of which items are from what, especially when they're bringing out so many packs and kits close together as well. It's really hard to start remembering which is from which before a new pack then comes out. But yeah, I love those windows. I use them in quite a few of my builds, and I love how you can use the triangular one with the square one, and then like in this style they kind of like look as though one large window running throughout all those floors. And then we've sort of jumped around to the front of the build. I do come back and do some more landscaping further along once I've done some more of the interior, but I knew that I wanted to kind of have this sectioned off area going up to the stairs that leads to the front door, and I thought this would make a good space to put the bins as well. So I've put 2 garbage bins there as well, and I kind of always just imagine that one is for normal rubbish and one is for recycling, so I always like to place down 2 there. And then now that I've got a majority of that floor plan done, I'm just going to come in and roughly place down doors. Sometimes I will tweak these and move them over if needed, but I like to make sure I can get my windows placed down at this point so everything works for me on both the exterior and the interior. Of course, I want it to have curb appeal, so I want it to look quite nice from the outside, but then I want the windows to be in places that are going to be functional and look right for inside as well. So this is why I like to come in and do my windows and doors at this point. Now the upstairs is only the parents' bedroom and an ensuite, and they don't actually end up having any separate windows because they have the big sliding window doors and then another door out onto their own little patio space as well. So there wasn't actually any room there to add any additional windows, but then they get lots of light coming through from those glass sliding doors anyway. And then when it comes to the interior of this build, I wanted it to look very similar to the exterior, so I keep with those stone walls in majority of the rooms. I did do the kids' rooms a little bit different so they could kind of have their own, it just so it looked a bit separate from the rest of the build but still flowed, and I didn't want it to look too cold in their rooms as well. But I'm just coming in here and adding on the last few bits of the outside. So I decided to section off this area of the front garden just to give it a bit more of a private off the road feel, because I feel as though this part of the area or the world, it kind of feels a little bit busy and neighborly. And then I'm just coming in and added on a few little exterior decoration bits, things like vents, the mailbox, the light. I just wanted it to look, I always like my builds to try and look quite realistic, but then with this one where I wanted it to have that modern effect, I didn't want to add on too much clutter. I did want to make sure that we could put down some solar panels because I feel as though they really suit a modern build. And then these little bedding, like flower bedding things from Debug, I'm not quite sure what you'd call them, but I feel as though they really make the garden look quite manicured and well presented, which fitted the front of this build nicely. So I did place down 2 of those and just pop down a few trees and plants here and there. I didn't want to go overboard because, again, like the other builds that I've done for this world, they look quite simple, and I feel as though I've designed them as though the person moving in here has kind of designed their own house, but they haven't moved in yet and put all of their finishing touches in, if that makes sense. Anyway, moving on inside, I wanted to go for this white marble floor throughout majority of the build. So all of the downstairs has this white marble flooring except for the bathroom and bedrooms. And then we're going to move on into the kitchen. Now, although this is a fairly decent sized house, I didn't feel as though the kitchen space was massive, but I worked with what I could, and I did end up really loving how this turned out. So we're going to go in with this nice large island in the middle, and then this also made a great space to place down the sink. And then I'm going to do these wraparound corners here, making lots of use out of this wall space that we've got here, and then I can continue that with the upper cabinets as well. And I really liked how this flowed. I don't ever really do many kitchens where you can do the counters wrapping around the corner like that, so it was quite fun to do that. It's not usually a style that I go for where you can, in a modern build especially, where you're going to walk in through the hallway and kind of like see the kitchen, if that makes sense, but I liked how open it made this build feel. I really wanted to make use of as much space as I could to give them as many appliances as I could. So we placed down the cooker and the stovetop, and then we've got the dishwasher, the coffee grinder with the espresso maker. I'm fiddling about here trying to work out where to place the kettle because I knew I wanted to have the kettle somewhere, but I was just being a bit picky with how it places because it really bugs me how that places on the cabinet. And then, like I mentioned, I wanted these to have a very new home feel to them, so I didn't want to place down loads of clutter, and again because I wanted to keep them quite minimalist in mind as well. But then this does leave a space for you to add in any kind of items that suit the particular sim that you might want to place down in this house. Speaking of that, this house is available to download on the Sims 4 gallery, so I will leave all of that information in the description box below. I haven't 100% decided on what to call this particular build, but by the time I upload it, I'm sure I would have have come up with something. At the moment it's just large glass house, but hopefully I can think of something a little bit better. But I'm just coming in here now and adding in a few little bits and pieces without making it feel too cluttered. A lot of the time when I build homes, I want to make them look really realistic and go all in with loads of clutter. But for these particular houses or these particular homes in Newcrest, I've tried not to do that so that I'm building something a little bit different. I did want to still make them feel as though they're ready to live in though. So I want to make sure that there's plants and things pop down, but not too many personal touches, if that makes sense. But I really love this little space over here. We placed down these little lights and I've put the light switches inside them, and I quite like how that looks. I feel as though it just gives a little bit of a modern accent to that part of the wall. And then I was placing down radiators. I placed down the radiator in the kitchen, and then I forgot to do it in some of the rooms. So as we go throughout the build, if you think why some rooms got radiators and some don't worry, I do come back towards the end of the build and place down any that I've forgotten. I love to add them in. They're one of my favorite add-ons to the game. Like, I feel as though they should be a base game add-on, but I was really pleased when we got them in for rent. However, because I just love how much realism they add to a build. However, I do think it's a little bit unfair that they are locked behind a particular expansion pack, because I definitely feel as though radiators should be a base game item, even though they're not functional as such. But yeah, moving on. In the living room, I didn't place down a radiator because I went for a fireplace, and I loved how this turned out. I feel as though a lot of the time when I go to build a living room, I try to make it look quite cozy, but where this one had all glass windows all the way around, it felt quite open. So I sort of put in the fireplace thinking that kind of gives off a little bit of a cozy element to it anyway. But I really loved how this room turned out. I think this would be such a cool living room, especially where you've got all the glass walls. I feel as though it would maybe suit other worlds a little bit better that don't feel so towny. Like, I think it would be amazing in like a countryside or the countryside world, or somewhere like Solani even. But yeah, I loved how it turned out. I feel as though it really fits that modern vibe. Again, I didn't want to overclutter this. And another thing, when I was building this, I knew that I was putting 2 bedrooms down for 2 children, but I hadn't fully sort of decided what age they were going to be, and I was thinking that they would be more older teenagers. But then when it comes to doing their rooms, I decided to make them children. So I kind of imagined them maybe like 10, but I didn't end up placing down any kind of child clutter throughout the rest of the house. And then as I was sort of building this, I always end up thinking up storylines and stories for the families as I'm going through building. And I kind of imagined, although I don't believe it's possible in The Sims 4, but the kids that live here actually go to like a private school where they're just at home on the weekends or school holidays. And I built this house with summer in mind, where we've got the pool and stuff. So I kind of imagined maybe they're home for summer, but the reason why there isn't like loads of children clutter around the house is because they're away at school a lot of the time, and their parents are very they like everything to be very polished to perfection and put away. So yeah, when we go into the kids' rooms, it's the complete opposite vibe, and I've tried to give each of their rooms its own personality. But around the rest of the house, I haven't necessarily put much children stuff. So yeah, that's just something to bear in mind. Moving on into the dining room, I loved how this room turned out as well. I really wanted them to have like this large formal dining space. I kind of imagine that the husband has a very professional job, and maybe that means hosting his bosses or his colleagues for dinner. So I felt as though it'd be nice to have this formal dining space that they can do that in. And I just loved how their room come together. It come together so easy. I decided to go in with a hint of yellow and orange with the bar and the rug, and it added a really nice amount of warmth to the room. And yeah, I loved it. It was, along with the living room, one of my favorite rooms in this build. We're then going to move on to the main bathroom. So this is downstairs, and it's a decent sized bathroom. I decided I would use glass walls inside on here as well, as I'm really loving them for shower screens as well. So as you can see, I've sectioned off this little back part of the bathroom, I placed down the shower from Snowy Escape, and then we've built that wall, made it glass. But I love that because it's a natural wall, you can still add mirrors and things onto it effortlessly, and I just love how it looks. It feels as though it's really sectioned off that shower space from the rest of the bathroom. I did decide to go in here and add on 2 sinks rather than 1, just because I kind of imagined lots of people getting ready in this house, or where there are the 2 children when they are here, or of course they're going to be here, because like I said, I don't think the whole boarding school thing is an actual thing in The Sims 4. I'm sure it used to be in one of the older Sims games, but I don't think it is in The Sims 4. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong, because I don't play gameplay too often. But then I didn't want to put too much else in this bathroom. I decided to put these cabinets from Dream Home Decorator along the top, as I imagined they would make really good storage for things like towels and stuff like that. And then that is that bathroom come together nice and quick, and we're going to move on into the kids' rooms. So I decided in the bedrooms, both these ones downstairs and the upstairs bedroom, to do wood flooring rather than the marble, just so it didn't feel so cold. And then we're going to go in and do the girls' room first. I decided we would have a girl and a boy, and like I said, I imagined them both maybe being twins around the age of 10, or maybe you could have one at like 8, 9 sort of age and the other at 10. But I did imagine them both kind of being like pre-teen age, so maybe like one at 10 and one 12, but not yet teenager, because in the daughter's room I placed down a few toys. So we've got I placed down the large modern doll's house just because it was a decent sized room to fit it in, but then I do also place down a few older girls things as well. And then it kind of made me imagine that maybe she's at the age where she started growing out of her toys, getting rid of them, but she's just not ready to part with her doll's house yet, so I left that there. But then I have placed down a few little makeup items. Like, my daughter is 8 and she's kind of at that stage where already she's wanting to play with makeup and do her hair all pretty and, you know, think about the outfits she wants to wear, but she does still love playing with her toys. And like I said, she's only 8, so I kind of imagined a little bit the daughter in this house being a little bit like that. Like, she's still the age of wanting to play with toys, but she's also wanting to experiment in some of that older girl stuff as well. So I wanted to kind of represent that in the clutter and the items I placed down. And then as you can see, that this room is quite cluttered and messy, I suppose, compared to the rest of the build. And that's because I did want it to feel as though, you know, it's the parents' house, but they still want their kids' bedrooms to be how they want them to be. So we've finished off the daughter's room and we're going to move on to the son's room. And his room is the only space in the house that has a desk and I think I could put down a computer rather than a laptop. I was going to place down an office space in the hallway upstairs, and then I completely forgot and just went for a hallway vibe. But there's definitely space upstairs if you wanted to place down a second desk and a computer sort of area, maybe for one of the Sims if you imagine them working from home. But yeah, this son, I kind of imagined him being maybe a little bit older than the daughter, and he's very sporty and then also into IT or technology as well, so that's why he got the computer in his room. I kind of imagined that maybe he's not a geek, but he really enjoys doing school stuff and being on the computer, maybe researching and things like that, and then on the flip side being very sporty as well and liking hobbies like going to the gym and things like that. So I placed down a few little clutter items to try and represent that as well. And then I did also decide to place down some music items in here as well. I kind of maybe imagine that he's the type of person who is just going through at the moment, trying different hobbies and finding the things he enjoys. Like, maybe he used to enjoy sports and then now he's into music, kind of that age where you do start experimenting and trying out new hobbies and things to do. So I placed on a few random bits in his room, but it's obviously a great space as well if you need to use the computer, as I'm sure the Sims will. I did also place down the little frog tank in here as well, because I kind of wanted it to come through in his personality that he just jumps from thing to thing. But then we're going to move on upstairs. I did have to play around with this cabinet because although it snapped to the top of the ceiling, it was clipping through the floor. So I moved that down a little bit in the downstairs bathroom, and then upstairs we're going to move on to the small ensuite bathroom that is up here for the parents. And again, I've gone in, placed down that glass wall, but put an archway there so you only see the glass at the top, and then this just makes a little double shower space, which I quite liked. It's only a small space, so you couldn't play around with it loads, but I liked how that turned out. And then obviously we're going to place down the toilet and sink. I couldn't decide on a rug that I liked in here that looked both modern and sort of fitted the vibe for the room, so I ended up not placing down a rug in this bathroom. But I really loved the tiles on this one as well. I'm going to have to double check what pack they're from because I don't feel as though they're something I've used too often, but I really liked those, and I liked that it did add a little bit of colour because there's not exactly much colour going on in this build. It's all very neutral. And then we're going to move on into the parents' bedroom, and they do have quite a large size bedroom, and I had this image saved on Pinterest of, it was a real life room, but they had a bed and 2 bedside cabinets, and then rather than having lights on their bedside cabinets, they had these like lights dangling down from the ceiling, and I couldn't replicate it exactly in The Sims to what it looked as in the picture, but this was sort of the best alternative that I could come up with, and I liked how this looked. It was just a little bit different to having bedside table lamps, and yeah, I thought it looked quite pretty. So I then made the most of placing down something different on the bedside cabinets for lights. So we placed down a little plant on one side and then a fake sort of sticky plant on the other side with some books as well. And then I decided to go with the ottoman at the bottom of the bed and then this fluffy rug. And I feel as though the bedroom, although the rest of the house looks quite cool and calming, the bedroom up here looks a little bit warmer, which I think would be nice for a bedroom space. I did decide as well, because we had room in here, to give them the built-in wardrobe as well, placing down some plants, of course, as I feel as though these are a great decorative item when you are building a modern style home and you're not adding in too much clutter. It's really easy to come in and add on some house plants, and it just add a little something else to the room. Over in this little corner here as well, I decided to create like a little reading nook. So I placed down the chair and the lamp and then a couple of shelves with some books on, as I thought maybe one of them, they like to have a little bit of chill time upstairs reading. And then they're really lucky as well, because up here off of their bedroom, they've got 2 sort of like private areas. They've got the indoor conservatory and then the balcony as well. I did this different trick here with the curtains on the windows here as well. So I've used the tall swatch height and then the shorter swatch height on the lower side. So they're the same curtains but in different lengths. And I liked how that worked for this window, whereas though it looks as though it's flowing across both the floors. I then did decide as well, I really didn't like the picture that I'd placed down in the downstairs hallway, so I messed around a little bit and changed those around until I was happy with that. And then up here, this is the space that I was originally going to have as an office space, as I think this would make a cool little desk area, but I don't know, I changed my mind last minute because I feel as though that's what I normally would put here, and I was trying to be a little bit different with this build. So I ended up adding in the corner sofa and kind of just having it as a little seating area, but you could definitely swap this out and place down a desk if you feel that would fit your gameplay better. We're then going to move on to their outside decking area. So over on this side, I just wanted to put down originally a fire pit, and then I went against that and put down this fireplace instead, which I think looks quite nice and a little bit more practical to have on an upstairs balcony. And then I'm going to use these outdoor seats from, I think it's from the Desert Luxe kit. I really love these for a modern look. I placed down the telescope as well because I didn't feel as though I'd placed down too many skill building items as such here, so I thought the telescope would be a good one. And we do have the grand piano actually downstairs in the living room as well, so there are a few skills for the adults to do. And then we're going to move on over to the other part, this kind of like upstairs conservatory area. So I placed down the grass floor swatch and then stuck with those marble tiles around the edges. And then obviously this room is going to get lots of light during the day, but I popped up these string lights and wall lights for the night time, and I just imagined that this would be a really different place to come and do some gardening, and it kind of like maybe one of the Sims that can be their particular hobby, so they've got their own space away from it. This is where I remembered that most of the rooms I'd left out placing down radiators and light switches, so I just go through really quickly and try and squeeze them in where I can in each of the rooms where I had missed placing those down. And then I decided it was time to finish off the front and back garden, so I placed down the larger planter boxes at the front of the house and then felt they would match perfectly in the back, so quickly popped some down in the back as well. And then I didn't want to go and fill this space and make it look too cluttered or like placing down loads of items. I wanted this whole build to feel quite spacious because obviously it's quite a large home to live in. So I placed down this underneath this sort of balcony area we've created, or this I kind of like added at the start of the building the thing that I don't know what it'd be called, the awning thing, and it kind of looks a bit like an extension to be like a bit of a shaded area, work like how a pergola would. So I placed down the barbecue and seating, sort of eating area under there, and then I thought this would be the perfect spot to place down 2 sun lounges, and I imagined the little drinks tray being alcohol, and then I just placed down some things for the kids to do outside as well, because like I said, I kind of imagined that they go away to private school and then maybe they come back only school holidays, and it is the summer here in the UK, so I wanted to make sure that the garden space had a very summery feel to it as well. So we've got the pool with the floaties, there's the basketball hoop, there's the swing, the water bucket, so there's a few things for kids to do. I do also place down some bikes, but I was going to place these in the back garden and then felt as though it just made much more sense placing them out the front. And then that kind of brings us now to the end of the build. I'm just going to go in and add a very small amount of terrain paint. I didn't want to add loads of terrain paint because I wanted it to look quite well manicured and looked after, but then that does bring us to the end of the build, so I'm going to leave you with screenshots. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, please do leave it a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would absolutely love it if you did. Thank you all so much for watching. Lots of love. Bye bye.